Okay, so we still have a few people joining, but I'm going to get started to respect everybody's lunch hour, because I'm guessing most of us are using our lunch for this time. So I don't want to take more of it than I need to. For everyone joining, my name is Melissa Maloney. I'm the Director of Operations with SelectPath, and we are very excited to bring you our second Exemplify session. So this is a new series focused on all things wellness. So we're focusing on emotional wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness, financial wellness, and all aspects of wellness, because we think it's a topic that needs to be covered. So we're very excited to have you join us for our second session, Creating Joy Amongst the Chaos. And I get to introduce your speaker for today, Meaghan Jansen. She is the co-founder of Employee Wellness Solutions. And I will just tell you a little bit about them. So their health and wellness strategy started out with a simple concept: encourage a healthy workplace to make it easier for employees to choose health. In turn, healthy decisions reflect a better bottom line. For the past 17 years, Employee Wellness Solutions Network changed the way people think about health and wellness in the workplace. Our passionate team has helped many businesses change the culture of their workforce with staggering results. They feel fortunate to be in the position they are today, offering some of the best wellness programs available. As an industry leader, they've streamlined their offerings to be inclusive for all organizations, big or small. In their efforts to build wellness programs that suit any workplace, they created the Workplace Wellness Membership. Employers become members, employees enjoy all program components. Any of our memberships may be expanded by using an innovative workplace wellness membership credit system, and the results speak for themselves. Listening to the changes people are making and how it impacts in their lives gives them confidence that they are accomplishing their goal. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Meaghan, and she is going to help us find some joy on a Tuesday afternoon.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm excited to walk you through a really important topic that's close to my heart. I am a speaker. I do lots of these talks in different capacities, and jumped to the opportunity to be part of the SelectPath series. So we are going to spend some time on creating joy amidst the chaos. And before I kind of get into more specifics, I wanted to share a bit more personally about who I am, a bit more about my family. And I think where a lot of this, what you'll hear today, will stem from a personal and authentic story. So I have a husband. We're married, Garth Jansen, been married for lots of years, I think 16 or 17 years now, lose track. We have two children. Olivia is 11 and Jacob is 14. I will soon be out. I'll soon be the shortest in our family, so that's not gonna. It's not going to be too long. I'm moved to London in 2001 to complete my grad work here at Western. And I spent my entire childhood in New Brunswick. So I'm actually from the East Coast. So if anybody on the call is from the East, when I'm doing these talks in front of people, I always love to make connections with people. The Atlantic provinces are near and dear to my heart. So it's always nice to meet people from there. Anyway, growing up in the East, was, we lived a happy childhood. I was the oldest of four of us, three younger brothers. I was the oldest and wisest. We all, did well in school. I went to university, played lots of sports, and had two very hardworking parents who were both teachers. When about 14 or 15 years of age, my middle brother ended up expressing various behaviors that were unhealthy, and mental illness soon became part of the thread of our family. So dealing with mental illness has been something that we've had to do for a long time, and everything from addiction to gambling to suspensions and getting kicked off of different teams, and our family was dealing with this the best way we knew how. Ended up moving to London in 2001, and I was excited to move into a new chapter. However, I had definite guilt about leaving. I was the fixer in the family. So, you take someone who has this expectation of fixing and move them into a completely different community And so I took a lot of the burden with me, and still do to this day. Unfortunately, things aren't much better. So, living with this, recognizing that there's certain things that can't be done, tie in various levels of crisis through, financial crisis and various challenges as a family, we had to go through quite a bit. And so I like to share a bit of my story. I mean, this is the very summarized Coles Notes version, but mental illness has always played a big role in the functioning of our family. And it's something that I found to be, again, important to bring some authentic self to the presentations that I love to do, just because I think it kind of opens up other vulnerabilities in some of the people I speak with. So with respect to what we're going to be talking about today, there are various aspects in what we'll talk about that are really considered looking at ways we're dealing with things and managing and coping strategies around how we're doing. This is by no means a substitute, though, for assistance, medical treatments, or professional intervention through family doctors, professionals that can help us. EAP is also in that area. So recognizing that specifically around this pandemic and how we are doing, how we are struggling, how our emotions are likely really not what we're used to. There are definite reasons why it's important to mention that none of us are on this, in this alone, and it's recommended if we are struggling to please reach out and speak up. So that is really the beginning here of the session. I promise it's going to be a lot more fun. I want to sort of get into this in a way of sharing some strategies, tips and strategies that will be beneficial and helpful for you. Ideas that I hope you'll consider them nuggets, take them, put them in your back pocket, and think about using them as you continue to kind of get through this period of time as well. There are 3 areas of focus I'm going to spend the next 35 minutes on or so. The first one is looking at ways to optimize our energy levels. So if we are dealt with a hand of cards, or dealt with crisis, dealt with struggle because of this pandemic, if our energy levels are low, we can't even think of dealing with anything. So how can we optimize our energy levels? And so part of that will, I think, be helpful to following up from Lisa's talk last month, sorry. The second area of focus today is on the resiliency piece and accepting change. And this is an important piece that I think will breed, I hope, lots of hope and looking for ways in which we might be able to address this. And I'll be sharing a couple of personal examples of that. And then the third area is the finding purpose. What truly makes you happy? And if we can't pinpoint that, that makes things a little more challenging, but not impossible. So I'm hopeful. I'm not a motivational speaker. I like to consider myself, and I've been told I'm an inspirational speaker. Kind of gets people thinking about things, ways, strategies, tips that might be beneficial. Take the nugget, stick it in your back pocket. And at the end of today's session, I would love to know what nugget stood out for you. So that, use the chat box. That's something that we really want to encourage. So energy levels. So part of this whole process of recognizing energy is something that is critically important. So back in the day, if you remember, you might have had a time management presenter and talk about, okay, you've got to manage your time, you've got to write things down and kind of how much time you're spending on different things. And then how is that going to really make you have open time? Well, these days, time is fleeting and boundaries are blurred. And so we need to think of this a little differently. So a very good professional friend of mine, Melissa, I had the opportunity to interview in a project we did back a couple of years ago, and she shared this tip of energy management, and I loved it. So I wanted to express my recognition of her and her brilliance when it comes to bringing this to fruition. So I want to give you kind of an example of how to do this. So if you take a, you don't have to do this right now, but do this maybe when you have some time. But if you take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and you draw a line down the middle, and on one side, you're going to write the word energizers. And on the other side, you're going to write energy suckers. So energizers and energy suckers. And what the idea is to make a list of everything under energizers that give you joy, that gives you fulfillment, that makes you feel good. Your coffee in the morning, watching the Olympics recap, hugging your kids, talking to a colleague you really like. What are some of those tasks during your day that gives you energy? Like after it, you feel good. And then the opposite is true, is we also want to recognize what things completely suck our energies or destroy our spirit, like total opposites. So making a list of the things we have to do during the day that we might not just be totally excited about. People we have to deal with, things we have to do in our day, things that just, again, don't give us a lot of excitement, but have to get done. So the idea is taking control of our day. The idea is at the end of the day, not feeling totally mentally exhausted. So it is an energy assessment. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're finished your work, how do you feel? Like, do you feel completely mentally exhausted? Or are you ready to go to the next thing? Or have we just been sort of ingrained into thinking that we have to kind of keep things rolling this way, which I think a lot of us in survival mode are. So if we can look at our lists and start balancing our energy expenditures, we are able to then have more control of how we're feeling at the end of the day, and thus having more energy or not feeling completely mentally exhausted. So you start your day with one of your energizers. Then you can balance your day. Bring something from that list that energy sucks you and follow it. And then bring another energizer, tactics, task, person you got to deal with that you're happy about after that. And then you can kind of balance your day that way. The idea is to finish your day feeling better and feeling good. And if we can look at controlling things, I mean, there's a lot to these days we can't control, but there are certain things we can. So this is one of those things we might be able to do. Another thing I want to mention is with this energy management and optimizing energy. It's an important one. And kind of getting to this point, I think, is critical for all of us who do feel like that at the end of the day, but is determining how energetic you are throughout the day. Like, is your energy throughout the day the highest in the morning? Then maybe we start looking at getting things done that have to get done that day first thing in the morning. Or is it midday? Is it midday or mid-afternoon? You're exhausted, nothing you can do to kind of get yourself feeling a bit more energized. Again, being aware of that is critically important. So energy blocking, energy management is a really great step in this first bucket of suggestions, is energizing, assessing our energy levels. So give that a try. This might be one of your nuggets, one of your takeaways that you'd like to try. So think about that as we move forward. Now, to get into a bit more of physical health is where I'm going to go next with respect to, again, this optimizing energy area of looking for ways in which we can find happiness and create some joy amidst this time. And one of those ways is choosing foods that are healthy for us. And to echo Lisa's discussion last month around the types of foods, one of the resources, and I do like to share various aspects of show and tell. So if any of you have heard me speak before, you'll know, yep, there she goes with some props. Well, I love to share kind of applicable things that do tend to be quite helpful for people. So in terms of our consumption of our food, this is a nice tool I like to share, is where we see half of our plates is healthy vegetables. We have a quarter of our plates proteins and a quarter of our starches. And so this is not new to any of us, likely, but the visual is important to get a feel. So how many plant-based foods are we choosing to consume in our day? And a lot of us are probably less than what we could and should be. But most when it comes to foods that are healthy for us, it drives our energy levels. This is the whole point of this first bucket of discussion, is what can we do to optimize our energy levels? So one of the books that I really like to share different ideas and book ideas, you're going to get the slide deck. So you'll be able to refer back to some of the photos and pictures and images you'll see. But Dr. Natasha Turner is a really great author. She's a Canadian naturopath out of Toronto, and she wrote this book called The Hormone Diet. It's all about, as our stresses change, our food consumptions can change, and certain food choices turn on and off stress hormones. So it's kind of a neat discussion to bring into this nutrition piece and physical health, is because there's certain things we can do to educate ourselves, and there's tons of resources. But one that I wanted to share, I read it cover to cover when I was dealing with my mild form of depression, when I was going through my challenges of feeling that guilt and shame for leaving my family. And I found ways to educate myself on really why I was feeling the way I was doing. And so this is something that I wanted to share as an option for us to kind of get a feel for what's out there. Maybe how I'm feeling isn't the way I want to be, and how I'm feeling. Maybe there are ways that might be able to help in different capacities. Again, keeping in mind energy systems and optimizing energy. If we have high energy, we are more apt and able to deal with things that are coming our way. If we eat like junk, we're going to feel like junk. So how can we balance that? I'm not saying junk, it has to be completely out of it. I'm saying balance. Now, the second area I want to focus is on movement. And this is another area, I think, of focus for people, especially now where a lot of us are working from home, we're sitting a lot more, is being mindful of our movement. I mean, how many hours do you sit in one place, not moving? And I'm sure a lot of you on this call likely can go hours without moving. Specifically, again, around this new work environment, likely for some of us. So if we don't move, our energy levels suffer. You know, when you're kind of, I call it like a Netflix coma, where you're watching TV and you watch so much of it, you get you're more tired than when you, like the thought of getting up is just not there. Like you're kind of into it, kind of comatose. This is the idea. We want to avoid too much sedentary behavior, because that will make us feel even more tired. So what are things we can do? If you are an avid exerciser and you've kind of lost your mojo, which I think a lot of us through this pandemic have had to deal with, like, you know, you're into a routine and then it's like, well, everything's closed down. So what am I going to do now? And you kind of lose your mojo. When it comes to getting that back, or if you are one who does have lots of sedentary behaviors, this is a challenge for you. And maybe this is your takeaway nugget for today, is how many different times during your day can you break up your sitting time? So, I mean, I call these oxygen events. How many oxygen events can you get in a day? Start with 1 or 2. Get up, go fill your water bottle. Get up, do some stretches. I mean, if I were in front of you, I'd probably get us all standing up right now and doing some stretches. Count that as an oxygen event. Walking the dog at night. Count that as an oxygen event. Get up to 10, not right away. Start with 1 or 2 and just kind of get them going a little bit. And just changing the stagnation of our sitting is a really great example. Being from the East, there's beautiful bodies of water. But there's also bogs and swamps that grow green stuff because the water just kind of sits there. I'm not saying our bodies will grow green stuff, but what I am saying is we need to think about ways to kind of move it a little bit, get the blood flow going. Deep breaths is a one way of doing it. Standing up, changing your posture is another way. But get down to identifying movement that makes you happy. If you hate running, don't do it. If you love walking, do more of it. If you love, gardening, look forward to it. Now that it's hopefully going to be nicer weather to get out there. Do more of what makes you happy. Some seasons you'll have more oxygen events than others. but do more of the opportunities to kind of be mindful of what we're doing for movement. If you are an avid exerciser and if you've lost your mojo, this is a tip, takeaway nugget, put it in your back pocket. Do 5 minutes and then decide if it's for you. If after 5 minutes, you're like, nope, the couch is more welcoming, I'm going to need to go back there, I'm just not into it today, then allow yourself that opportunity to say that. If after 5 minutes, you're like, no, I can probably watch another 5 minutes of that show and do a bit more, and maybe you'll get 10 minutes that day. Feel like that is definitely a win. At these days, I'm finding that we have to look for the wins. And so one of the things that I found to be also helpful is deciding that the longevity of your body, your mind are important enough. Enough about this exercise as a chore. Some days it's going to feel like a chore, but what can we do? What do we have control over to get more movement in our day? And if we can prioritize that, it's going to help us become more mindful of what we're able to do. Now, a tactic to help with this, it's called habit stacking. So it's taking a habitual routine schedule of doing something, say like brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth twice a day, I hope. What can you do twice a day that is kind of a habit that you can get into? So I remember doing this talk 10 plus years ago at a law firm, and I saw this lady at Costco not too long ago. She says, Meaghan, do you remember the time when I was struggling getting movement in my day, and you said, when I brush my teeth, do 20 squats. You're doing 20 squats in the morning and 20 squats in the nighttime. She's like, I'm still doing it 15 years later. So she worked it into a habit. So again, not to say squats might be your jam, but doing something in relation to a routine or a habit currently is a way to kind of get into the point of not even realizing you're doing it. So again, you'll have access to looking at a couple of these examples, but I wanted to share that as another idea, another ticket, another nugget in your back pocket to think about. What are some of the things you can do to maybe increase your activity a bit more around things that you do every day? It's a great kind of reminder. The third area of physical health that I wanted to just spend 30 seconds on, it would take about quite a long time to get through all of this in more than 45 minutes, is sleep. Sleep is one of those things that goes by the wayside pretty regularly if you are struggling with something, stress, challenges. Some people, if I were to ask you, how many of you fall asleep and you're asleep and you have no problem falling asleep? And then, but some people would say, well, I kind of categorize myself as I go to sleep. I think I'm tired and I'm up for an hour. I can't seem to fall asleep. Some of you will fall asleep okay, but wake up at the same time every single night of life. And, between 2 and 4 a.m. And I know through the magic of virtual world, it's likely head bobs going on the other side of this call. We all can, we can talk about sleep in 100 different ways. But another resource I wanted to share is this one. The second tool from my tickle trunk is this one, Dr. Greg Wells. That name might resonate with some of you. He's a researcher. He's a sport physiologist. He does lots of really cool things. That name you might recognize from an older Olympics. He was the one kind of scrutinizing the athletic performances and how bodies move and some really cool things, all real scientific stuff. But I co-presented at a conference with him. And he was also, as part of my project back in 2019, interviewing Dr. Wells and kind of tapping into some of the cool things he knows. And I have to tell you, looking at different resources out there, I absolutely loved reading about sleep in his book, The Ripple Effect. So there's 4 different pillars he talks about: sleep better, eat better, move better, think better. By far, one of the best overviews of layman's terms, explanations of sleep is this sleep better portion of his book. Now, again, there's tons of researchers out there, lots of resources. I'm sharing some from my personal library that I, again, want to share and talk about because they're things that I have found also personally very helpful. So some of these things, again, are coming through kind of that way. Now, in terms of the second area of focus, and we did spend quite a bit of time talking about some optimizing our energy levels. I now want to spend some time talking about resiliency. And I want to throw this out there thinking, has that word been overused? I mean, I think the word pivot has been overused in this pandemic and other ones, hybrid, remote, all this. But the word resiliency, I think we all have badges of honor when it comes to getting through these times, getting through this pandemic, figuring out ways to find the silver lining. So I'm challenging us to think about this in a slightly different way. When things happen to us, we need to, unfavorable, ones that aren't great, changes, things happen, health issues, we need to have time to adjust and accept the fact that it's happening. I started to have symptoms 15 months ago. Not too many people know about this. It has not been shared other than in my family. And most of my family members still don't really know. I started to have symptoms about 15 months ago, and it turned into a testing for the last 8 specialists testing. I'm going through cardiac testing, and I have been diagnosed with congenital heart defect, which now we're trying to come up with some solutions for me. Being a marathon runner, which is part of my other life, personal life, is being active in our community and running and loving everything to do about exercise and being a spokesperson for it with our business. It's like, well, who am I? So talk about me needing to find ways to adjust to this new reality. Recognizing that I can only control what I can control. That was something that I needed to come to terms with. But then I had a thought like, if I can't run, if I can't do this because of my symptoms, what can I do? So I found a love of swimming. I can swim. I can't do aerobic exercise like running. Go figure, not sure why yet. But I had to come up with the opportunity. What is the silver lining with this most terrible news I'm dealing with? I've got bad days and I have okay days, just like everybody. If we're taxied with something that comes up, this is the exact definition of resiliency. How can we take what we're dealt or take something that's happened and turn it into something different? Have I had to relove walking at 9:30 at night to get the dog around the block? I've had to relearn how to love that because that's what I can do. So this isn't something that just happens. It's practice. And so a couple of things that I wanted to share along with this, again, are certain examples, real life ones, as well as things to consider. So some of you may recognize the name Brene Brown. So I found this, this is talking about Corona, okay, the COVID. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-Corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment. This part of this quote, like, I'm not huge on quotes, but I loved this part because it spoke. We are going through struggles. We're all taxied in some way. We all have a story. We're all dealing with something. We're struggling. Our emotional health is not what it was because of so many factors, pandemic included. But can we look at it differently? Can we look at challenge differently? Can we look at change differently? What is your opportunity? Are you able to see an opportunity? And you know what? We might be on this call like, Meaghan, I'm just surviving. Like, I got a B and that's good enough for me. If that is where you are, absolutely fair. If we are looking for ways to create more joy and find more happiness, there's certain things that we are needing to do. And there are certain things that will come, maybe not today. You might think of this as a nugget later on when you feel a bit more in control of how you're feeling. But this is something that I found to be very helpful, specifically when I was going through at the 2-year time point where I was presented. A friend of mine said, Meaghan, like, you're just not yourself. Is there anything I can do? And I was like, oh no, I'll talk. I'm talking to my husband, and my family life is great. We got lots going on. I'm happy. And she's like, are you? I said, well, I'm holding on to something. And so I started to talk to somebody. I actually took my own advice, and I actually talked to somebody for 2 years in helping me reframe how I was thinking and feeling. And so I started to dabble in a couple of different things to maybe help offset how I was doing and feeling. And I have to tell you, I've never been a reader. So my husband said, Meaghan, why don't you try to read this book? And I'm like, nah, I'm not a reader. No, I'm good. And then he got me this audio book. And so it's in my car right now. By far, one of the best resources that I could really find myself feeling more empowered and feeling more joy in understanding more of how I was doing. So this book or audio called Peaks and Valleys is one of my all-time favorites. The second one just above it, some of you may recognize that Who Moved My Cheese. It's about 4 mice. This Dr. Spencer Jansen talks about parables. So it's easy to understand stories, and they're quite short. So that one might resonate with some of you. It's about 2 mice that roll with change and 2 mice that don't. So it's quite good. There's a couple others up there. One is this Brene Brown's Rising Strong. She's also a favorite in the world of resiliency, accepting where we are, recognizing our vulnerabilities and doing something with it. So I found that to be a helpful one. I like audio. I mean, before pandemic, I was traveling all over the place, so I was able to educate myself in different ways. There's other ones here on the screen. Some of you I know in January and February is when all these resolutions come out to play. And I've never been one to love the word resolution. But anyway, this Atomic Habits has been popping up in different ways, doing small things, and small things lead to other things. So again, finding what works for you is critical. Faith for us as a family is critically important. We rely on our faith a lot. This book, The Purpose-Driven Life, has always been one of my favorites as well. And Jay Shetty, some of you may recognize this book, Think Like a Monk. The title is, I had to look at the tagline. It says, train your mind for peace and purpose every day. So I thought that spoke to me. So again, these are ideas in terms of ways in which we may be able to tap into resources to help us where we are and to help us kind of think about what is the opportunity. Speaking of opportunity, the third area and the third bucket of sharing today is happiness. And this is something that is researched, actually, like happiness. Can you have it? Can you get it? Is it a muscle? Do you have to work it? Do you have to practice? And the answer is yes, 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 and yes. It's really looking at ways to help us feel more connected, more empowered, and to tap into really what our true purpose is. And I absolutely love talking about this piece because, yes, I have another example of this and how we as a family have had to do it and look for ways. But one of the ways in which we've had to talk about kind of carving out some time to think about what makes us truly happy and then focusing in on that is creating space. And mindset comes into play when it comes to this. It's a very busy slide, but there's some examples of mindfulness resources. Part of this whole feat of or task of creating joy, creating it takes work. But if our minds are completely full, it makes things very difficult to even find space to think. So Calm and Headspace are two of my favorites. It teaches me how to relax. Like I'm type AAA. just like probably a lot of you on this call, but type AAA. So how are we able to make decisions or think if we're too busy? So this helps us kind of carve out some of that space. And a couple of books too. There's 3 or 4 here that, again, you're welcome to kind of research, get looking for ways that might support you and where you are. But again, I like to try to share practical resources here. It's just, things we can actually, nuggets, things that we might be able to try and do. Now, another way we can look at creating space is, again, people who do this well. I'm not one of them all the time. That is mind-filled. I'm more mind-filled, I think, than I'm mindful sometimes. But this whole piece on resiliency and creating joy, they go hand in hand. Creating space is needed. So if listening to a podcast or looking at an app or reading a book isn't your jam, maybe something else might resonate with you, and this may be it. It's called brain dumping, and it's kind of a weird word, but let me give you an example of what I mean. I've got my daughter's Shop Kids book here. So let's say you are a writer, like you like to journal, or you might not be a writer like me, and kind of this is a bit of a step, thinking about what you might be able to try and do. And, maybe this is something you might want to try, but if you get like a journal or a book and you flip it upside down, and in the very back, you start writing everything that is bothering you, you're worried about, your anxieties, your stresses, things that are challenging you, everything that's bothering you, getting it down on paper. And then if you flip the book right side up, on the very front of the journal, you can start writing what you're grateful for. Like, one of the things that kind of bothers me when listening to speakers is gratitude. We have to have an attitude of gratitude. The reality is most days, that's probably one of the last things we're thinking about. Yes, I'm grateful for my house and my family and my health. What else am I grateful for? I don't know. So by sharing some of these journal prompts is my encouragement for you to make it a little easier, because it is kind of hard to think, especially if you're in a little bit of a downward, not feeling, like I call it a little bit of a funk. I know what works for me is thinking about what I'm grateful for can help me get out of it. So again, making space is important, and this is one of those ways in which we can do it. Creating a family vision board is also something that's powerful for families to do, or you as an individual. This is something that we do as a family every year. We start to build different ideas and goals, and everything from home renovations to places we want to go to what community service we want to do. This is an important one. I wanted to run the Boston Marathon on my 40th birthday. And so I put it up there, fabulous at 40, and I put the little blue asterisk, the little blue star, what I had to hit. Thankfully, I did. I ended up being one of those people running in that torrential storm 3 years ago. So I was able to get to do that Boston Marathon and run that marathon on my 40th birthday. So it was a lot of fun. People may have different thoughts what they wanted to do on their 40th, but I just, again, focusing on something that is positive in your lives, that's goal oriented, is another tactic, not for everybody, but another tactic. Last thought, a couple more thoughts, and then I know it's 6 minutes to the top of the hour, is looking for happiness isn't the answer. It's creating it. What is the most important thing to you? Now, I'm sharing this in the sense of a family example. When my son was 6 years old, so about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years old, he wrote a letter to his class. He had this idea that he wanted to start a program. He says, "Mommy, I want to start a program." He goes up to his room, gets a laundry basket, and starts putting his toys in this laundry basket. This was around Christmas time. We were just coming from helping out at our parish with food hampers, and he wanted to do something. So he decides to go, and he's like, out the door, "I want to go walk around and give my toys away." I was heading to Vancouver the next day, and my husband says, "Meaghan, you better read this." So Jacob got up the next morning and wrote this letter to his grade 1 class, asking his friends to bring in toys they don't want anymore that he can give to other kids. So it has turned into a 7-year initiative. Initially, we had everything happening in our house. So people would come from all over the city, bringing us their gently used items. And we would need to find, well, where on earth is this stuff going to go? So then we had to come up with ways to find matches for some of these gifts and toys. And so that was our job to kind of come up with the different charities and community opportunities and shelters and youth groups and families that needed support. So we brought everything into our home. Next episode of The Hoarders, absolutely, where it was full. The first year we supported about 500, had about 500 items, 100 families, 100 kids, and it has grown. COVID happened. Now we are in 2 storage bins in our driveway where people from all over the city and elsewhere come and drop their things off. We organized them. We had classes down helping us pack and sort. Once we collect everything, we then made blessing bags. This is Olivia. We had blessing bags happening in our kitchen. We then started having friends over to help pack these gifts, and then we delivered them. And we have support from all over. We ended up supporting an entire public school. This year, we are well over 4,500 kids in 7 years that we've supported as a family, and now turned into a complete community initiative. Am I talking about this as something we have to duplicate? Absolutely not. What's something that makes you happy? What can you do to create more of it? Is this a call to maybe do something in your community, finding ways to help others maybe? Is this inspiring to you to maybe think about helping in different capacities as a family or as an individual, maybe? But I wanted to share this. This is how our family creates happiness, is this way, giving back to those in need amidst the chaos. And this is an example of how we wanted to do it. Final thought is, if, getting into doing something like this doesn't give you as much joy as it might others, start smaller. What about having a happiness jar? Keeping track of all the things that happen to us that's positive and joyful, we kind of forget about. So get a jar, a mason jar, a box, something, and keep track of all of the things that happen to you that's positive. At the end of the year, focus on that. What do we do at the end of the year in reflection is thinking about everything that went wrong versus everything that went right. So just shifting our mindset a little bit and doing some of these practical things I find to be quite helpful. Last thought of the day, and then Melissa, I want you to pop back in. If one of the things Jay Shetty, I saw him on Ellen doing something, or it was on a TED Talk. He says, name one thing that you are proud of today. Does that give you joy? One thing you're proud of. How does that make you feel? So there's my message in 44 minutes. I hope that was helpful. And if there's any thoughts on nuggets and different things that you were able to pull from the session, I'd love to hear about it. So Melissa, I'll take it away. You can take it away. See if there's any questions that come in.
For sure. Thank you, Meaghan. That was awesome. I know I get nuggets every time I listen to you speak, so grateful for some more nuggets. So thank you. So if anybody has any questions or anything that they'd like to ask Meaghan, you can type it into the chat or the Q&A, and we can throw it out there to everybody. I know this is a bit of in some cases, it might be a bit of a vulnerable topic to ask questions in front of everybody. So we are open to whatever you guys are open for. Give people a minute.
So there's a bit of a question there, I think, on showing the book again. So this one is the Dr. Greg Wells book. So this one is one that I mentioned about the sleep. So this was again an option for people. I know someone mentioned that. I think I caught it in the question box. So I just wanted to make sure that I addressed that or showed it again.
We've got a couple people just putting in notes, Meaghan, which is great. So somebody from Atlantic, because we're across the country today,
yes,
loved all the book recommendations. So, and you've got some Atlantic shout outs, so which is awesome. Somebody else really liked the brain dump idea, which is a great great thing to do. There's another, one of my favorite productivity books, that I'm totally blanking on, Getting Things Done. They talk about the fact that your brain isn't meant to remember things, it's meant to strategically think. So they're big, they really push the brain dump idea as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an important one. I don't do it enough, but it's a good practice to get into. And some of this stuff is just, does take practice, really.
Yeah, exactly. The slide deck will be shared. So when we we'll send out the recording and the slide deck. And we have an offer for everybody as well, just as a Employee Wellness Solutions is actually offering you guys some free opportunities. So so I will give you that information in a sec. I've got a question from somebody, but it's only to some of it. But that's it's sometimes
I know
it's a big vulnerable conversation to talk about what we're proud of.
Yeah, I usually shed a tear or two when I do this talk. I've done it so many times that it's, I bring in newness of things that have come up, right? So we're all struggling in different ways.
What we were awing about was somebody had just posted, and they now said that we can share. Why is it that when you asked what was one thing I was proud of that I tear up, which I think that's something for all of us. We did just get a question that came in that I think is a really great question. So how do you feel social media can influence mood? And they're saying that they've heard conflicting advice regarding its effect on mood.
Oh man, it affects mood.
Meaghan's like, I can do a whole talk on that.
Yeah. Do you want to do part B? We'll do part B. Yeah, totally. I mean, again, I'm coming from the lens of, or speaking from the lens, not medically, not, psychologically. So I can't speak to that. But there's a whole piece, I think, on the mental wellness of being online, the social media influences, seeing what the Joneses are doing, do we keep up with them? Or people posting things that it's just a good day, or is it like that all the time? Like what a perfect family is that, is that family that perfect? Like they can't be that perfect, or can they? And it kind of makes us feel bad when we're reading or seeing things that's shared. And so it's recognizing a couple of things. I think one is oftentimes people post things that are going well, and they're not going to post things that aren't going well. And so that is the realization and awareness of that, I think, is important. If you find it affecting your mood, reading and seeing posts from people and these perfect families and perfect people, disconnect. And it's an easier said than done, but I think taking a break from social media is also beneficial. I've got a 14-year-old who seems to be on his phone more now than ever before. And same idea. I mean, we've put in some restrictions, but it's when we're talking about young adults and older kids and teenagers, it's a completely different story. And so I think this is also something that has to be brought into the discussion. But try to disconnect as much as we can if it's affecting your mood negatively. If you feel empowered by seeing what people are doing and posting and sharing, then assess how you're feeling about it. But yeah, I think there's a huge discussion on this that, absolutely influential in more ways than one. I don't know if that answered things.
I think so, yes. Somebody's asking, do you have any resources for separating from social media or even just having your device? Personally, I know it's a problem. I feel as though I have phantom limb when I don't have my phone or when I'm not on my phone.
It's kind of turned into a crutch, I've seen it too in meetings with people on Zoom or whatever, and the phone's dinging, and then it's such a distraction. So it is, committing to maybe just looking for ways that work for you. Maybe not having it on during mealtime, not having it at the table when you're sitting at the table. Have no-go zones for some of these resources, some of the devices, different times to kind of allow yourself to participate. I mean, in different things. There's another rule of thumb I call rule of thumb in quotation marks that say, instead of scrolling, use your device, use your phone to search up something, look something up, instead of spending our time kind of looking through all the posts. Like, are you being productive? Is it a productive thing you're doing by just sort of going through and mind-numbing activities, versus if you need to find something or find an answer to something, then search that and then find ways to just to kind of slowly get out. It does become a habit, as the lady just mentioned. It's like, it's so natural, automatic, right? So it's changing habit, which is not easy. Atomic Habits, that James Cleary, I think is his name.
Yeah, James Clear, I think.
That one would be helpful as a resource. I know she was asking about a resource.
And one tip that I've heard somewhere along the way is to not pre-program passwords into social media apps, or to like put them under folders, or just so that they're not as easily accessible on your phone and it takes a little bit more work to get to them. That extra step of having to enter a password every single time will actually deter you from going.
Deter you. Yeah. That's a great tip.
Okay. Meaghan, do you want to flip to the next slide, and I will?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
That's
Let me
okay.
see if I can do that. There we go.
So Employee Wellness Solutions wanted to offer something out to everybody. They have an option for anybody who attended the webinar, and we'll send this out in the email as well. Anybody who registered, they are part of, they offer a web-based fitness program called Fitness for All. So anybody who attended today is welcome to have a free all access 30-day membership to that. So it's great online fitness classes for all ages and different types of classes. So if you want to check that out, we will send that information out as well in the email. And then for any organizations on the call, if you're looking to potentially take this talk, or obviously any other talks, but potentially this talk to your teams, Meaghan's offering 50% off if that's something that you'd like to do. So those will be sent out to everybody just so that you have them. Really grateful for Employee Wellness Solutions for giving us sort of that extra piece today for all of you for attending, which is great. So thank you, Meaghan. And at that, I'm going to say that we're going to wrap this up because we don't have any other questions. For any of you attending, just so you do know, our next event in March is going to be on resiliency. We have Dr. Barb Chambers coming to speak on that topic. So really, again, focusing on the mental health aspect of things. For anybody who would, we'll send information out on next month as well on the resiliency talk. And we will keep this wellness focus and sharing going. And again, so grateful for your time today, Meaghan. So thank you. And thanks to everyone for attending.
Thanks, everybody.